All right, welcome out. This is the presentation that I promised. This is going to be a rather lengthy one. Probably break this up maybe into 2 videos, maybe 3, I don't know. Depends on how long it takes me. So this is the crux of the biscuit. This is where it all stems from. Most of what we're doing in life begins in the early years in our education, not only in the school, but at home, in society and so forth, you know, that type of thing for sure. But here we're going to talk about the more formalized education. We're going to talk about primary and secondary schooling and higher education. What is it? Where have we come from? Where are we? Where are we going? I'll give you a little bit of background on primary and secondary and talk a little bit about the economy and how the economy is related to education. Why science and math are the superstars of education, right? There's a specific monetary reason for that, right? So the title, How to Achieve in School and Life, Skills, Attitudes, Knowledge You Need to Achieve and Maintain Success. So it's not just about knowledge, it's also got to do with attitudes and skills. Skills are the actual things that you do, you know, that you function, perform acts, activities, functionalities upon your environment, right? You're not just sitting there cerebrally reflecting or thinking or contemplating or computing. You're actually doing things, problem solving, right? Skills are certain acts or functions in the environment, in the real world, okay? So one of the first things we're going to look at in regards to education is how has it, I should say, how has it been moved along, or there's been attempts to move education along, to fix education. Allegedly, education around the world is in constant reform, and in the United States, education has been in the reform mode for decades. Have things really been fixed? No, not really. They've actually gotten worse or stayed pretty much the same, as you can see here. So one of the solutions allegedly is to just throw money. You know, if there's a problem, throw money at it. But money is not does not have a direct effect. It's really about what is done with that money. How effective does it reach the individuals? That money, what does that money do in reaching the individuals and their ability to learn, acquire knowledge, process, retain, and so forth. So you can see going back to 1970, and that date is significant because the Primary Secondary School Act was passed by Lyndon Baines Johnson in the 60s, 65, I think it was. We'll take a look at that in a second. And that was supposed to fix things, you know. And in its most current form, it's no child left behind. But unfortunately, as LeBron James says in his commercial, which came out some years ago, it's probably at least 5, maybe 10 years ago, more children are being left behind than ever before. One child is dropping out every 26 seconds. You've got the 24-second clock in the NBA, right? It's just a couple seconds longer than most teams are allowed to shoot or perform one play in the NBA, right? Anyway, so throw more money at it. So they started throwing more money at education. And this, again, this is, as you can see, the years here, 9 years to 17 years. We're talking primary, elementary, and secondary high school, right? So more and more money what has been spent over the years. This is just up to 2005, but I'm sure that's increased over the years since then. And the student to teacher ratio has dropped. So you're getting fewer students to teachers, right? Instead of having 15 or 20, you've got 10 or 5 or fewer, maybe, I don't know the particulars there, but the ratio is dropping so that teachers can spend more time with each student, focus on each student more. How has that resulted? You know, what has it resulted in? Literacy at 17 years maintained the same, 13 years, 9 years. So it's flatlined. Just like with the with LBJ's Lyndon Baines Johnson's war against poverty. That was in this program, Education Act, Primary Secondary Education Act was a part of that war against poverty. But the same thing with poverty. Poverty has stagnated at about 10, 11% since the 60s. So that hasn't changed much either. You know, they say two things. If you want things to stay the same, just throw more money or have government get involved, you know. So both not doing the job. So, you know, and not to poo-poo government, sure, I'm sure that some involved are more concerned about children and students doing well, but oftentimes the problem with politics is it's politics, you know. And most of the time, these people are more concerned about getting votes, getting in the office, staying in office temporarily, and kicking the can down the road. As long as they get in there 4, 6, 8 years, whatever it is, you know, they don't care. They'll kick the can down the road and let the next person worry about it, right? As long as I got in office, did my time, and we didn't get too many bad marks, right? All right, so let's move on. So who is the all-star? Who are the all-stars in education, academia? As I said before, it's science and math. And we'll look at Michio Kaku's statement on that. He's a scientist, well-known scientist. You've probably seen him on one of those do-it-yourself tax software commercials where he talks about zero. Zero is zero. So you're saying zero is nothing. Yes, zero is nothing. Zero is zero. So a really smart guy over-explaining something very simple. That's comedy, right? It's supposed to be funny. It is funny. Anyway, so half the wages and salaries come from the creative sector. And here, 1.7 trillion, that's probably gone up. This is a little old, a little dated, but nevertheless, still relevant. Creative sector, meaning not necessarily the arts, you know, fine arts and writing, literature, film and music and so forth. Here they're talking about science, scientific innovation, right? But let's go here, if I may. And take a look at what he has to say.
Agree with my esteemed colleague there. Okay.
Except
First of all, let me say that science is the engine of prosperity. From steam power to electricity to the laser to the transistor to the computer.
That's not true.
We're talking about, hey, can I have my, sure. You had your say, let me have my say. However, the information revolution has a weakness, and the weakness is precisely the educational system. The United States has the worst educational system known to science. Our graduates compete regularly at the level of third world countries. So how come the scientific establishment of the United States doesn't collapse? If we're producing a generation of dummies, if the stupid index of America keeps rising every year.
Pretty scathing comments, right? Remarks.
Just watch network television and reality shows, right? How come the scientific establishment of the United States doesn't collapse? Let me tell you something. Some of you may not know this. America has a secret weapon. That secret weapon is the H-1B. Without the H-1B, the scientific establishment of this country would collapse. Forget about Google. Forget about Silicon Valley. There would be no Silicon Valley without the H-1B. And you know what the H-1B is? It's the genius visa, okay? You realize that in the United States, 50% of all PhD candidates are foreign-born. At my system, one of the biggest in the United States, 100% of the PhD candidates are foreign-born. The United States is a magnet sucking up all the brains of the world, but now the brains are going back. They're going back to China. They're going back to India. And people are saying, oh my God, there's a Silicon Valley in India now. Oh my God, there's a Silicon Valley in China. Duh. Where did it come from? It came from the United States. So don't tell me that science isn't the engine of prosperity. You remove the H-1B visa and you collapse the economy. In Wall Street Journal, editorialized against a congressman who wanted to ban the H-1B, saying they'll take jobs away from the American people. The Wall Street Journal said, look, there are no Americans who can take these jobs. These are at the highest level of high technology. They don't take away jobs for Americans. They create entire industries. And so that's why we have an Achilles heel, and that's the educational system. And again, sociology majors are not necessarily.
So that pretty much scores the point right there. And I've heard people advocate for math, specifically science, not so much, but mathematics, that it teaches one to think well, to think logically, to use one's mind in a rational, logical, disciplined way. And then there's some truth to that for sure. And I'm not going to poo-poo science or math. My father was a mechanical engineer. I worked in the computer field for a while. I almost majored in mathematics. So I was really good with math. I went all the way up to calculus and had no problem. And, enjoyed it and see its purpose in the world. But unfortunately, the majority of students who graduate from high school are not interested in math. They're not going into math fields. And even if they do, they don't perform well, as is stated here by Dr. Kaku, I guess we can say. And that's a problem. The STEM field itself is relatively small. There's not a lot of people working science, technology, engineering, math in that field, but it's one of the fastest growing. Fortunately, it's small, but still it's growing relatively quickly. And the problem is, as he said, not enough students graduating from mostly college to fill those roles, right? They're not prepared. So the education system is failing in that regard for sure. And this is the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, and as you can see, it's part of the social welfare history project here. So it is a, I guess it's still around, still functioning, part of the welfare program, and in its most current form, Every Student Succeeds Act. I'm sorry, right, and that was put into being by Obama. But the problem is that more, I think it's also been called No Child Left Behind. Isn't that the other name? No Child Left Behind Act, right? It's in its most current form. And sadly, more children are being left behind than ever before. LeBron James talked about this. Colin Powell, who I think also, he wasn't of Obama's administration, maybe Bush's administration, used to go across the country and speak to kids, stay in school, and there's that commercial by LeBron James, and there are others, celebrities, people in politics, entertainment, business, and elsewhere, trying to help the problem, kids stay in school and so forth, right? But the problem is that kids are not staying in school. More and more kids are dropping out than ever before. And also, if you look at statistics in the last couple of years, the number of students not registering for public school, at least, has dropped by the millions, 2 to 3 million or so per year. So let's go back to the presentation. So talking about scientific innovation, creative solution in the post-academic world, I should say post-secondary world, because in college there is some creative solution thinking, problem solving, I should say, going on. But in school, it's pretty much the answers are back in the book, or in the back of the book. Don't ask questions, just look at the answer, go to the answer. Not a lot of creative thinking, problem solving, critical, creative, intuitive thinking going on in school per se. But in the real world, if you're going to problem solve, and if you have problems, and if you have scientific problems, engineering problems, mathematical problems, in the real world, there is no answer in the back of the book. You have to create the answer. So in order to create the answer or the solution, in order to help the economy grow, since half of all jobs that are making the most money for this country are in the creative sector, as that $1.7 trillion shows, then one needs to be able to think creatively, right? Creatively, intuitively. Einstein talked about intuition. Without intuition, there is nothing, right? It's nice, as he said, to garner knowledge, to pick up on knowledge, to acquire knowledge and file away that which is going to be used on a regular basis. He basically said, if you don't use it on a regular basis, there's limited capacity up here, so leave it in the book till you need it. But if you're using it on a regular basis, then commit to memory that which you use most frequently, right? understanding your limitations is what really smart people like Einstein and others focus on. Because once you understand your limitations, your intellectual, maybe even emotional limitations or other human limitations, you work from there. Understanding your limitations, then you can work towards improving yourself, work towards your strengths, emphasize your strengths, limit your weaknesses type of thing, right? And Einstein was all about that for sure. It's interesting because I've read a lot about Einstein. I've read about his theories, theory of relativity, especially as relates to time travel, black holes and such. And great scientist, but I also think he was even a better human, not so much in the caring, giving capacity, but in the understanding capacity. You really understand the human mind, human nature, and that's how one needs to be in order to maximize one's potential in any capacity, not as a great abstract physics professor or a mathematical thinker, but at any level, in any capacity, in any discipline, in any area in life, public, private, career, otherwise. Right? So anyway, so in order to problem solve, you have to think creatively. Divergent thinking here, which is the focus of this research data, 1,500 kindergarten students were looked at over a period of years until the age of 25. And they found out that they're divergent. To diverge is to go away, right? You're going down a particular path. You know, you're attempting to discover the light bulb, right? And allegedly there were 1,000 attempts to discover Edison. You know, it took him 1,000 times to finally get it right. Right, and you think about it, light bulb, that's pretty basic, isn't it? You've got a little filament in there. You've got you create a little vacuum with the bulb, right? You make it see-through, so the element, when the element's lit, you get light, and then you have the metal base, which conducts with the other, you know, the male into the female, and conducts so that you can create the electrical current, blah blah blah, creating light. You know, it looks pretty simple, but again, in order to perfect it or to get it working and working well, 1,000 tries, right? And he was asked, I guess, allegedly, you know, how do you feel about failing 1,000 times? He said, it wasn't failing 1,000 times. I look at it as 1,000 steps to success, right? And that's true. He couldn't get from A to B, the creative solution, ultimate creative solution, without trying again. Again, it's not like school, where the answer is in the back of the book. It's already known, it's preconceived, it's been established. All you have to do is, you know, do the formula as it's been done hundreds, thousands of times by many people over time, and just follow that particular structure to get the answer, which is in the back of the book, which is a known. In the real world, the answer solutions are not known. So you need creative thinking. Divergent thinking is not necessarily creative thinking. It's kind of like the structure of creative thinking. So in order, you know, creating a light bulb, you're going down one path, that didn't work. Next path, next path, next path, right? You're diverging from the original path. So divergence or divergent thinking is a component of the basic structure, foundation, I guess, the moving parts of creative thinking, right? You're going down here, you got to move over here. Going down here, you got to, that didn't work, move over here, move over here, until you find the solution. So allegedly, in this breakpoint and beyond data research model, 3 to 5 years old, 98% of students had genius level divergent thinking capability, right? And you can see it, the number of students over time, 8 to 10 years old, 13 to 15, 25, and over the build their genius, the number of students with genius divergent thinking capability dropped down to 2%. Some say that's allegedly it's been educated out of them. I don't know about that, but it definitely probably diminished over time. That might have something to do just with the natural evolution or growth of the human or humans over that time, brain structure and other things going on physiologically that caused that drop. But some also suggest it's environmental, that they're not practicing or using creative thinking. You don't use it, you lose it. So there's that. Don't let yours blow up. Currently, 1/3 of all public high school students are dropping out. And I talked about the fact that there's, probably 1 million or 2 at least every year for the last few years who are not registering or re-upping to go back to public school, right? I don't know where they're going. Maybe they're going to private schools, maybe they're dropping out, but they're not re-registering in public schools. So why is this happening? The economy, of course, that's pretty obvious. The minimum wage doesn't pay enough. Divorce, that breaks up the home scene, and it disrupts the whole family. So it's going to disrupt the children probably the most, and put them in a very vulnerable situation, and they're not going to be as likely to be able to focus on their education, right? So of those who stay in school, nearly 3/4 of students desire college education. Most fail. About half of them who go off to college do not get a degree. And of those who do get a degree, about 70%, within 5 to 10 years, 70% are no longer working in a field related to their major. So there's a lot of missing going on, right? And why is that? Well, people just don't know much about education. Do you know why you took what you took in high school, right? Look at your high school mission statement. Usually those mission statements will say certain things like, there's academic knowledge that we're attempting to help the student acquire. We're also helping them. We want them to fit into a society, a global society. We want them to be ethical and moral and upright and good citizens and clean, brave, reverent, all that good stuff, right? But if you look at those mission statements, look at your high school mission statements or even college mission statement, right? They have them as well, and see how much of what you're allegedly getting you got or are getting, right? There's easy ways to check these things out, right? And oftentimes there's more deficiency than needs met. Okay. What's missing? You begin learning success for failure at an early age. A lot of what you learn is often myth-based and inaccurate thinking, right? So there's a good portion of your ability to succeed that is established in the early years, and that's usually comes from the help or assistance from parents, right? Who do certain things to encourage a good self-esteem, intellectual curiosity, openness to learning, comfort with being wrong, and so forth and so on, and a desire to excel and reach out and go forth, right? Not to you don't want to be a parent or a guardian or whomever, to beat a child, not physically, but mentally and emotionally, beat them down mentally and emotionally. That is a great inhibitor, not only to education, but to success in doing anything in life overall, right? So that's where a lot of it begins, that's for sure. But now skipping past the early years, the developmental years, which are roughly 3 to 8. Psychologists say that usually by the age of 8, you have established certain habits and understanding, feeling about self that really set the mood or the mode of functionality for the rest of your life. Things can be changed, but they can only be changed if you're aware of what's going on in here, and you do some self-reflecting and some honest looking inward, and then you attempt to fix using self-help or your own reflective abilities, insights, pondering, or assistance, of course, from others, family, friends, experts. But anyway, so once we get to college, what's the big deal about college? College, allegedly, many politicians, I think it was George Bush Sr., there was the education president, Obama also talked about everybody should have a bachelor's degree. And I'm saying, no, don't do that, right? There's a problem. There's a problem with a bachelor's degree. There's not a problem necessarily with education and learning and acquiring knowledge that you need in order to not only be good in the immediate situation to be functioning at maximum capacity so that you can do your job in relation to a career, right? But there's also ongoing needs that you have that will change over time and also will change as you change jobs and change careers. And allegedly, many experts say that you will have 3 to 5 up to 10 career changes over your working lifetime. I don't know, 10 seems quite a bit. I've had 5 changes, right, already. I'm pretty much done. I'm at the end. So who knows, how many career changes. And that comes because of environmental situations. For instance, in the late 80s, early 90s, the Cold War ended. Russia broke up, and Russia was no longer a threat. So the United States put down its guns. A lot of the military contracts went to the wayside. I know because my dad worked for Pratt & Whitney, and a lot of people got laid off, right? A lot of those, a lot of jobs in the technological industry, technological industries went by the wayside. It even affected me. I was working in the computer field, and a lot of people were laid off. There's a repercussive effect, right? A trickle-down effect as one major industry, just like the mortgage industry in 2008, subprime mortgage industry. There's always that effect, trickle-down effect, affecting other industries and workforces, right? So anyways, but back to the point at here, college bachelor's degree is the best. Allegedly, these are the myths on the left here, my left, right? Best path to achievement and good life. Not necessarily true. Here's a couple of detractions or limitations on that. Forbes 400, most with a run-of-the-mill college, most in the Forbes 400, I should say, have a run-of-the-mill college degree or no degree. Many 2-year STEM jobs outpay 4-year degrees. So there's just a couple of factors that negate that belief that college is the best path to achievement. A college degree is just a tool, right? It's a neutral tool. It really depends on what you bring to it. And a college degree also is not a monolith, right? Each college degree, if you get a college degree in accounting or engineering or whatever at a particular college, that degree is not the same at all colleges, right? Some colleges emphasize certain course loads differently. They emphasize, for instance, some colleges emphasize the core courses of a particular major more so than the electives, and some are more elective based. And some colleges are really good at teaching a particular teaching within a particular discipline. Some are really good at education, some are really good at engineering, some are really good at economics, right? But not all colleges are the same, and not all colleges are good at teaching all things, right? So it's a very complex, open, and diverse scenario. And college degree, well, you might be better off with a college degree than not having one. Many employers will say, well, I've got a person with a college degree and I've got an unknown here, somebody who just graduated from high school. Well, what do I know about this person? What do I know about this person? This one, not much at all. High school, I don't know. This one, I know they went to college and they spent 4 years of their life, dedicated 4 years of their life. A lot of stick-to-itiveness to do that, to follow through for 4 years and get the degree. So there's a good amount of discipline and follow through and commitment there, right? So they're pretty serious, at least in that regard. And also, they have probably a certain level of knowledge or abilities, maybe even skills and attitudes that are superior to this relatively unknown high school grad. And that's why a lot of employers will hire people just with a degree, right? Most jobs out there, strangely enough, don't require a college degree, but over time, more and more hiring, more and more employers hiring, we're looking for employees or potential employees with the college degrees because of those two differentiating factors. That has changed a bit, especially in recent years because of the work environment being affected by COVID. It's really shifted now. They're kind of doing away with that college degree requirement. It's not so seen so as, you know, the end all and the cure all, or the way to go. Now some are saying, well, we really don't need that degree. Let's see what you can do, right? College ensures job security. No, I can tell you from personal experience. I worked with a lot of people when I was working in the programming industry. I was working up in Boston, and I was unemployed after the Cold War was over. I was out on the street. I was not out on the street, but I was out working probably 3 part-time jobs just to pay bills, right? And I remember I was stuffing mailers and mailboxes on the weekends, Saturday and Sundays. And I was working with accountants, engineers, people in jobs that require a good amount of skill and discipline and experience. Probably many of those people had bachelor's degrees, at least advanced, something beyond high school, 2-year degrees or technical degrees or 4-year degrees, right? So, yeah, look at 2008, right, with the subprime mortgage fraudulent collapse of the economy, right? That caused the collapse of the good collapse of the economy, right? So that is another myth. Third one here: college total was high school 16 years. My education, learning in life. No, capitalism is about turnover. There's something called the creative destruction of capitalism, because capitalism works within free markets. It's not socialism. Socialism is centrally controlled or government control of major industries, right? Free markets, capitalism, free markets are about individuals, the private individuals in the private sector, right? Not government, private sector, coming forth with new ideas. The phone, the computer, video games, right? So it's about innovation. So there's a lot of turnover, right? New ideas are coming forth on a regular basis, right? For instance, it used to be Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, at least out here where I live in California. But those went to the wayside when what happened? Netflix, right? Or there used to be quite a good number of bookstores out there, but Dalton Bookstore went out of business. Why? Because of Amazon, right? So there's this constant creative destruction, right? So as new ideas and as innovation, scientific innovation occurs, right? That creates new products and services and businesses, doing away with all the old ideas, right? And being replaced with the new. Okay. Capitalism, job complexity is also an issue, right? You're going to have, as I said, 3 to 5 career changes, never mind jobs. We're talking about career changes. Total overview, right? Overhaul, I should say, sorry. Overhaul, total overhaul, right? So you have to be adaptive, right? You not only have to learn a new career, or it might be probably something that's similar to what you were doing, divergent, little off the path from what you were doing, but still, you're going to have to learn some new knowledge, skills, in order to move into that career fully. I started out, what was the first thing I did? I worked in I did a bunch of odd jobs at first, but then eventually I got into the computer field. I was working in operations and then desktop support, and then I got into computer programming, mid-range systems, IBM mid-range systems. Did that for a while, then I dropped out, then I did stand-up comedy. Yes, that's why I ended up in California. And then I got out of that, and I went into teaching, got my advanced degrees, went into teaching, started my coaching business. So, that's 4 or 5 changes there, right? So those changes are going to occur. So that's the third thing, right? So you've got job complexity, you've got the complexity of the environment and the turnover because of capitalism. You also have the turnover because of individuals change, right? I might get bored with something and go and I realize I don't want to be a computer programmer. I go to something else. So that's individual initiated. And then there's also the initiation caused by the system, economic system itself. And then there's the initiation caused by external factors, such as the end of the Cold War or the 2008 subprime mortgage market collapse, right? Fiasco, fraud. Anyways, that's enough of that. College makes me a good citizen. Not really. Religion used to be more part of the college experience, but then that went to the wayside. And I remember I know it happened over in England. I don't know who said it or from what college, but allegedly when English, right, literature took over, that was going to teach us how to be moral and ethical and make right choices. You know, what would literature do? Not Jesus. What would literature do? That type of thing, right? And I think I forget who said it, but when literature became the next thing, or the thing to replace religion, somebody said, you know, we're not only going to educate people as to right and wrong, but we're going to save souls. That's a tall order, right? So there's that change. Not true, you know. And with more and more of the separation between church and state, or church and education, over the years, that's become more of a personal thing. Family does it, your community does it, your church or local organizations do it. Colleges are interested in my welfare and ensure future success. That, of course, is not true. Little checking for consumer satisfaction. There's a video that I've shown on numerous occasions. Maybe I'll post it in the link down below. It's called Declining by Degrees. Came out 2005, but it's still relevant now. And many in education, in higher education, and at like elite schools like Brown University and Yale and Princeton and elsewhere, talking about the fact that former president of Yale, Derek Bach, BOK, said that we do okay by our students, but we're still shortchanging them considerably, right? So many people are aware of all the problems in education throughout education, K through college, but not a lot of people are talking about it. But it needs to be spoken to. I know politicians are more concerned about money and power and being reelected. So, you know, and then there are those within the system who don't want to say anything because they want to keep their jobs, right? Me, I don't care. I'd rather tell the truth and let things fall where they lie, because of the truth, right? The whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help me, literature. Colleges know what they're doing with the classes they assign for my major electives. I talked about that already. Not true. Most professors are trained to see my education from a real world perspective. No, not in the least. There's another book that I've read and I've used in my research. It's called Academically Adrift. The author's name escaped me again. It's down in the links. Academically Adrift. And there's an example of a sociologist who is asked a question by the student. And the student says, you know, this is all nice, what we're learning, but what's the practical application? And the professor, he or she of great thinking, goes, gee, I don't know, didn't think about that. You know, I think about that. That's all I think about, right? I think about what do most people need most of the time in most situations, right? That's my methodology. That's my main methodology, right? One of the first things you need to know about is your education. It's foundational, it's fundamental, right? It's like eating and breathing and shelter. It's those Maslow basics, right? You need to know about your education. Where was I? What did I get? Where am I coming from? What am I going to keep needing over the years as I need to keep upgrading and learning new things, right? Not only to provide for myself in the workforce, but to provide for myself in a changing world, period, right? And at home, in the community, in the state, nation, world, right? All colleges agree with what my education should entail. Talked about that already, right? Accrediting agencies work with each college individually. Look at the mission statements, right? Not all mission statements are the same, right? Primary, secondary. I don't know if primary has mission statements, you know. We are here to teach shapes and forms and colors, and damn it, we're going to make sure they know their shapes. And I think mission statements are more for high school, a little higher education, high school, and definitely higher education, but you can look at your own again. Most jobs require college education. Talked about that already. Most jobs don't require college education, even though more employers are, it used to be true, that's changing a little bit now, even though most employers are looking for a college degree. More and more employers began looking for a college degree. As I said, that's changing a little bit, but most jobs don't require a college degree. Those jobs that do, and a college degree, that's debatable whether you need actually 4 years of in-class work, maybe 2 years of in-class work, and at least 2 years of on the job or on hands apprenticeship work. Like what doctors do. But if you're going to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, something that requires a good amount of training and knowledge, intensive training and knowledge and discipline and thinking, then that's a little different from most college degrees are not those degrees, right? The STEM degrees, most college degrees, most people do not go into those fields, as I said before. A lot of people getting degrees that, I don't know, won't do much for them. And with the cost of college going up, it's gone up like 50% at least in the last 10, 15 years or so, right? College expense is really ballooning out of control. Most students are going to graduate with probably a total debt of at least 50, 60,000 by the time it's paid off, right? Many students paying much more than that, 80, 100 or more, maybe 200,000, $250,000. I don't know. People are just spending way too much money on education, believing that it's the end all and the cure all. It is the God of education is the God of careers that will save me, blah, blah, blah. Not true. College ensures a job, a good wage, and money for life, including retirement. Again, I've already covered some of these points already. Job security is a myth. Talked about that. Most are struggling to pay bills and college loans. True. Most now retire on $25,000, which is crazy, right? Relying on family, friends, and government. I think there's only about less than 10%, maybe 5, 7, 8%, who have enough money to retire, right? And again, it's just that nobody's teaching this. Nobody's making anybody aware of this stuff, right? Some of the most important things you need to learn are never learned, right? Why did I take the stuff that I took in school? What do I specifically need? Not only in my career, in the workplace, but in my life, in order to maximize my potential economically, emotionally, physically, health-wise, and so forth, right? But a lot of this stuff is not taught. That's why I say education is really shortchanging us to the greatest degree. After graduating, I now have an education. I'm done. No, right? Even those who get grades, as it's stated here, many students will study for the grade, but forget everything after a short period of time because they were not focusing on retaining that knowledge and building on that knowledge and having a particular specific plan and goal mapped out, right? The main reason why you remember something or retain knowledge and build upon it is because you have a plan. There's a purpose. You're motivated, right? It just doesn't happen by osmosis. If I read this book and try to stick this stuff in my head, it's just going to stick. Just put some sticky substance on it, some super sticky glue on it, and it's just going to stick in my brain. No, you have to make it stick. After a period of time, knowledge dissipates. It goes away, so you have to keep refreshing that knowledge, right? If you don't use it, you lose it, applies here, right? If you're not refreshing it, and preferably building on it, because building in layers really helps to not only structure it, but build a foundation for retention, right? Most choosing majors like ice cream flavor at the mall. True. Yeah, I've had some students before, former clients, friends and family, and I've read some as well, who talk about choosing a major. There was one student who chose engineering. And I said, why did you choose that major? Sounds good. Sounds good. You're doing something, career, probably the second most important thing, the family, right? And it supports the family, provides, right? And they're making choices about that based on sounds good, right? Or they make extrinsic choices, right? Not internal, based on sound understanding of self and working to one's strengths. What am I really good at? What I have a much better chance at doing something career-wise because of what I know and hear on a regular basis, sticking to it. Life is long, careers are long, there's the struggle, right? So in order to really push you forward or to pull you through life's challenges, you need to have something. It needs to come from here, something solid, intrinsic, something substantial, right? As I say here, is intrinsic, not external, right? So most choose majors for job prospects, social political trends, family background, parental pressures, and all this stuff, right? I'm going to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, whatever, because that's what my family does. My father, mother suggested I should do it. My cousin, uncle said do it. My friends are doing this, so I'm going to go do that. That's where the money is. That's where the new jobs are, the green jobs, the STEM jobs. But I have no talent, ability, or natural inclinations or desires to do those jobs, but I'm going to go do them, and I'm going to be good at it. No, I can tell you, having worked in the computer field, that wasn't me. I'm good at logic, I'm good at math, and I was pretty good at it, but there's no way I was going to stick with it. No way. And you'll know. I mean, you'll know. You can go to books and academia and counselors and so forth, blah, blah, blah. But eventually, it ultimately comes down to you, and you will know. You'll feel it, right? And you'll feel it on such a intimate and extreme level that you maybe won't even be able to communicate it to others, but you'll know. Students stay in prolonged states of directionless shift. Delay characterized more by indecision than motivated reflection, confusion than the pursuit of clear goals, ambivalence than determination, right? William Damon, psychologist. So this is true. And that's more of the external stuff, right? Motivated reflection, that's intrinsic, right? Clear goals, you're probably confused because you're going for the external, trying to follow somebody else's goals or somebody else's path or vision, blah, blah, blah. You're not going in here, all that stuff, right? Because of lack of intrinsic understanding, thus motivation, students take the easiest path with least effort, obtaining weakest results. And that's a lot of that comes from that book that I read. Is probably one of the main sources, if not the main sources, that I've used for this presentation, Academically Adrift. What they're telling you about college and what's missing, right? So here's some specific areas. Derek Bach, former president of Harvard, right? Here's some specific inputs. You can listen to me, you can listen to academics, you can listen to your parents. Now, let's go to the source. Let's go to the people out there. Well, educators definitely are in there, but let's go to the source, right? Let's go to the people out there who are in the environment or are doing something. Business leaders unsure as to whether graduates have necessary skills to ensure economic competitiveness, right? That's also a commentary. That's also commentary related to commentary that was made in Academically Adrift. And I've seen it stated by many experts in and out of academia that there's a mismatch there, right? Educators' question as to whether recent organizational changes have undermined core education functions. True, that's within the academic realm. There's a lot going on that isn't spoken to because the administration doesn't want to rub the academics or the teachers wrong, and vice versa. And everybody kind of knows something's off, but in order to keep things moving on the up and up, if we throw a wrench into the works, it's really going to mess things up, and it might cause more harm than good, right? As far as their jobs and the perpetuation of the educational or academic institutions are concerned, right? So here he is, Derek Bach. This is what I was talking about. Colleges, universities, for all the benefits they bring, accomplish far less. That's not 50%, 60, maybe 70% less for their students than they should, right? And this, again, this is the premier college, Harvard, right? This is a top tier, not only in top tier, but also probably top of the top tier, tippity top, right? AOC would say, right? Many students graduate without being able to write well enough to satisfy their employers. Reason clearly, this is part of critical thinking, logic, right? Reason clearly or perform competently in analyzing complex non-technical problems. So this isn't even about technical problems, right? And this is a part of what Michio Kaku was speaking to, right? Secretary Commission on Higher Education, the quality of student learning in U.S. colleges, universities is inadequate and in some cases declining. There you go. Bachelor's degree losing its power. Close to the 90s, the United States ranked last among 19 nations in raising college participation rates, right? With almost no increase during the decade. And that comes from the president of the National Center for Higher Education, Public Policy. Academically adrift, here you go, the next two are from an academically adrift. More than 90% of employers, right? So I always tell my clients, students, anyone who wants to listen, 70% or higher, you got a problem, right? Within 5 to 10 years, 70% of graduates are no longer working in a field related to their major. I could see some disruption there, sure. Some of it is caused by external factors. It could be a war, Cold War ending, or the corruption of the economy because of a particular market, fraudulent activities in a particular market, subprime mortgage, right? So it could be external, sure, and some of it could be because of the individual. So there are many factors involved, right? But if you're talking 90%, I think that's probably the inherent structure of the educational system, right? More than 90, and that's what makes you the dummy index. Talk about that. The dummy index is off the charts. More than 90% of employers rate written communication, critical thinking, and problem solving is very important. But they're obviously not getting what they want or need. Because 70% of students with U.S. bachelors do not excel in the above, industry has already largely adapted by turning to graduate schools and foreign sources. There it is. Michio Kaku again talked about that. He talked about his I don't know what you call his organization of scientists. I guess I don't know what his company is. He says it's the largest in the United States and all of them foreign born. So there is a problem, right? Industry already largely adapted to turning to graduate schools, foreign sources, often regulating U.S. college graduates to routine non-manual operations. Need I say more? Right. Reason, intuition, analytical skills, critical to the new turbulent world job market. True, right? So these are certain skills or abilities that you need. You need to reason well. You need to think well, logically, and also intuitively. Einstein, what did he say? Without intuition, there is nothing, right? You can acquire knowledge. So in order for him to come up with a theory of relativity or quantum theory, whatever it is, theories that he came up with, there had to be a leap. There had to be a leap beyond the known, right? So in order to problem solve in the real world, you can't just rely on the existing. Sure, you can build up a knowledge base, you can do your research and your study to understand physics or economics or whatever, right? But in order to find a solution to fill a gap between the known and the unknown, you have to use your intuition. And that's why Einstein says, without intuition, there is nothing. Intuition is everything, kind of basically, is what he said, right? So you need that intuition, that eureka, to problem solve, to come up with solutions to current problems. Reason, intuition, analytical skills, critical in the new turbulent world job market, right? So yeah, you're gonna have 3 to 5 career changes. Today's jobs, recommendation experts in all fields, right? You're not a what they used to say, a data or knowledge expert. You're more of a information, expert, I guess. But you have to be a recommendation expert, which is a constant, a fluid understanding and creation of solution from existing data or knowledge, right? You can have you can have all the information you want, access to all the information you want. Then the problem is you got to, go through it all to differentiate, what's right, what's wrong, what's accurate, what's inaccurate, and so forth. But ultimately, it's going to come down to you coming up with some type of solution or recommendation, right? Death of the job leads to critical need for entrepreneurial skills, even as an employee. Very true. And this began happening after the Cold War came to an end. I myself was laid off from because of the Cold War ending, and I had to start finding contract work, right? Employers were not because for the longest time through the 50s and 60s and 70s and most of the 80s, things were very comfortable. Okay? You get a job, you keep a job, you stay in that job, because the economy. The thing was that the United States was one of the few countries that was left untouched by the war. So they were able to, for decades, just coast, right? Look at the car industry, right? By the time the 80s and 90s came along, it was in serious trouble, right? Two of the big three, I think it was Chevrolet, went out of business or was looking for help from the federal government to stay in business, right? Because people had choices, right? And most of the cars that people drive now are foreign. It's Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, right? It's not Ford, Chevrolet, and all the American cars, right? It's because the other countries caught up, and they have not only caught up but excelled and exceeded where the United States was technologically, right? And as far as engineering as well. Age of turbulence, complexity, critical need for creative, intuitive reasoning, prerequisite to life. Yes. So because of the age of turbulence, geez, that's a book I read by the former head of the Federal Reserve. Let me cheat. Age of turbulence. I forget who it was. Talk amongst yourselves. Age of Turbulence. That would be Alan Greenspan, right? I wrote that book, Age of Turbulence. So with the advent, mostly in the 90s, the beginning of the 90s, I should say, of the internet, right? And the information age and technology, right? That's when things really started to speed up. And the amount of change or turnover has increased. It continues to increase over time, right? So free markets, by the very nature of them being free markets, it's always about the next latest and greatest product and or service, right? Or intellectual property or whatever, right? That innovation is always there, but then you're adding like fuel to the fire, right? By throwing in technology. Technology is going to speed up things, make things even sped up more faster, right? And I love looking at technology and the technological machines that are out there. You see machines that will cultivate, acres of farmland in a fraction of the time that it used to take for even those with machines to farm the land. There's this one machine that cuts a tree, flips it, cleans it, and segments it in less than a minute. I've worked chopping trees down, creating firewood and doing all that stuff. And also I've had jobs where I had to do that. And if you've got a team of people with chainsaws and hatchets and whatever, it takes hours to fell a tree, clean it and chop it up, segment it. But this innovation, or now you have machines that will pull a tree out, dig a hole elsewhere and transplant that tree, dig a hole, pull the tree out, just scoop it right out as is, bring it over to the hole that was dug by that machine, plop it in. I mean, again, something like that, even if you have a backhoe or whatever, some lesser technology, take hours and hours. With a machine like that, you're talking less than an hour to do. So that type of innovation really has sped up the economy. What most are not bringing to college. Many students come to college poorly prepared for highly demanding academic tasks, but more troubling still, they enter college with attitudes. Yes, norms, values, behaviors that are often at odds with academic commitment, right? Again, that's from Academic Thinker Drift. 3 big killers. Limited knowledge about chosen occupation. True. Again, students are just saying, well, I'm going to pick engineering because it's sounds good, or I'm going to be an accountant because my mom or dad is, or I'm going to get a STEM job or a green job because that's where the big money is right now, right? And they just go without thinking, right? Limited knowledge about chosen occupation, that's a killer. Educational requirements, that's a killer. Or future demands for chosen occupation, also a killer. And this is the statistic I already gave you, 5 to 10 years, 70% of graduates no longer working in a field related to their major. Where are your professors? By 1989, faculty at 4-year colleges overwhelmingly reported that scholarship was more important than teaching for tenure decisions. Academically addresses this issue, where it's not about the undergrads, really. They might focus a little more on graduates, but undergrads, who cares? You know, I got to research and write books. That's what's going to keep me employed, right? Undergraduate education, not significant for career advancement, as I said. Meanwhile, administrators reluctant to right the ship for upsetting relations. I talked about that, right? You don't want to say too much or step on too many toes. So I can't be too honest to the faculty, or the faculty to the administration. Yeah, the president, you know, just ignore it. Just ignore it. It'll go away. You know, problem will solve itself. Or maybe it'll never get really, really, really bad, and then we'll just let it go and go and go, right? Survival mode, right? Survival of the weakest, I guess you could say, or the lamest. How about you? Colleges no longer enforce moral, ethical, social behavior, right? For even educators, administrators only half believe in such principles. Students admit cheating, 63, 26%, that's gone up. But the thing is, you know, when you're taking a survey and you're asked, do you cheat? Well, if you cheat, you're probably going to cheat and say no. No, I don't cheat. So you're cheating on the question as to whether you cheat. Lack of values kills not only careers, families, ultimate society, critical success value, honesty, accountability, appreciation, all these things, right? You need those things. Those are the values that you need. Most people don't know the values that they want or need, or will help them thrive individually and also in the collective. So I'm going to end on this, and then I'll continue the presentation in the next video. Give us all a break. The last thing is killer college debt and poor work habits. 4 years total tuition debt. Yeah, 50 to. So I talked about total tuition. I said 50 or 60 for the low end. I think the average student is taking out like 36,000 now, roughly. But you add, you know, that's just the principal. But if you add the interest over 10, 20, 30 years, whatever the loan period is, and the interest, you're talking at least 50, 60,000. But 100,000, and that's not the top end either. I've seen 200,000, $250,000, right? Average credit card debt by senior year, 4,000. That's not good, especially when you got no money. And when you're going to college, you're building debt. You're not paying things off, right? Most students feel college is time to enjoy social life. 80% of students study 12 hours a week. That's a part of academically addressed. That'd be a good book to read, I think, if you're interested in knowing about the lay of the land, what's going on out there in the higher education, also in the world of employment, what employers are looking for, or what they know. Probably since they're hiring and they're the ones spending money, right? They're going to give you a salary. They probably know much more about you than you know about them, right? Students as main consumers seek easiest path to minimize academic effort to maximize leisure time, right? That's also academically driven. Many college students believe they will find high-paying jobs to pay off debt, and that's a problem, right? So I'll end here, and we'll see you next time. So take care.